36,000 acres of England. That's how much of this country one man quietly owns. You know his face. You know his name. You just know it for the wrong reason. Because to you, James Dyson is the vacuum cleaner bloke, the bagless one, the hand dryer in every motorway services, the man who somehow made suction cool. But that's not where the real money sits anymore. Right now, today, James Dyson is the single biggest farmer in Britain. Bigger than the crown. Bigger than nearly every aristocrat whose family has held their estate for 600 years. And here's the part that'll get you. You have almost certainly eaten food grown on his land this week, and you never had the faintest idea. I'm going to show you how big this empire really is, what it's actually worth, and the one detail about how he pays for it that made half of Britain absolutely furious. Stay with me for that last one, because once you hear it, those proudly British adverts will never sound quite the same again. So let's start with the scale, because the numbers are genuinely hard to believe. Dyson's farming company is called Beeswax Dyson Farming. Dull name. Enormous reach. It spreads across Lincolnshire, Oxfordshire, Gloucestershire and Somerset. But the beating heart of it is Lincolnshire, the flat, fertile east of England where some of the best growing soil in the country sits. We are talking around 36,000 acres. To put that in something you can actually picture, that's roughly the size of the entire city of Bristol. One man farming an area the size of a major British city. And he didn't inherit a single acre of it. Every field was bought, with cash made from engineering, from selling machines that move air. Now think about that for a second. Most of Britain's great estates were handed down. Centuries of land, passed from father to son, never sold. Dyson did the exact opposite. He has built one of the largest estates in the country from scratch, in a single lifetime, while you weren't looking. And he is not slowing down. He keeps buying. And it started, like a lot of big land stories, with one bold decision. Dyson began snapping up farmland in the early 2000s, and he didn't tiptoe in, he bought at scale, whole estates at a time, the sort of deals that make the farming press sit up and take notice. While other investors chased shares and city flats, he was buying the most boring, most valuable thing in the country, good English soil, by the 1,000-acre. Year after year, the holding grew. A farm here, an estate there, until one day people in the industry looked up and realized the vacuum man wasn't dabbling. He had quietly become the biggest of the lot. Let that land properly. We are talking about a man who owns more British farmland than the royal family. The king, with all his ancient estates, his duchies, his centuries of inherited ground, and a bloke from Norfolk who invented a better vacuum cleaner has outfarmed the monarch. That is not a fluke. That is not luck. That is somebody who looked at the most traditional, most locked-up asset in all of Britain and simply bought his way to the very top of it in a few short decades. Here's where it stops being ordinary farming and starts being pure Dyson. In the middle of Lincolnshire, he built a glass house, not a greenhouse, a glass house. 26 acres of glass under a single roof. When it was built, it was one of the biggest of its kind in the country. And what's growing inside it? Strawberries. British strawberries. Grown in Lincolnshire, in volumes that used to be impossible this far north, this late into the year. Millions of them, every single season, sent straight to British supermarket shelves. The man who reinvented the vacuum cleaner looked at the humble British strawberry, a fruit we normally import by the lorry load, and decided he could simply grow it better at home, at scale. And he did. But a glass house that size needs heat, and heat costs a fortune. So Dyson did the Dyson thing again. He built anaerobic digesters, great tanks that take crops and farm waste and turn them into gas and electricity. That energy heats the glasshouse that grows the strawberries. And when there's power to spare, it gets sold back into the national grid. So on the right day, James Dyson's farm isn't just feeding Britain, it's helping to power British homes too. The whole thing is a closed loop. Waste becomes energy. Energy becomes heat. Heat becomes food. Food becomes profit. It is, frankly, an engineer's fantasy made real in a Lincolnshire field. Where an ordinary farmer sees mud, Dyson saw a machine. And it isn't just strawberries. Across those 36,000 acres, he grows the everyday stuff, potatoes, peas, wheat, oilseed. The unglamorous crops that actually feed a nation. Those peas in your freezer, the chips on your plate, the flour in the loaf in your kitchen. There is a real chance some of it began life in a Dyson field, and you would never know it, because his name isn't on the packet. That's the bit that gets me. You think of him as a luxury brand, a 400 quid vacuum, a pricey hairdryer. But quietly, he has become part of your weekly shop in the most basic way there is. He's in your dinner. And here's what nobody tells you about James Dyson. The vacuum, the hairdryer, the fans, all of that, the stuff with his name plastered across it, that's the shop window. The farmland is the vault. One is the business everyone sees. The other is the wealth almost nobody talks about. He has spent decades letting you picture him as an inventor, a gadget man, while quietly assembling one of the great land empires of modern Britain behind the curtain. The story you know is the distraction. This one is the real story. Now, why does any of this matter? Because Dyson doesn't farm like a farmer. He farms like an engineer who is slightly obsessed. The same brain that spent years perfecting the airflow inside a vacuum is now pointed at soil, water, and yield. Data on every field. Precision planting. Machinery and technology most traditional farms could never dream of affording. He has poured money into agricultural research and robotics. Machines to monitor crops, to cut waste, to do the back-breaking jobs fewer and fewer people want to do. He treats a potato field the way he treats a product line. Measure everything, waste nothing, squeeze out every last % of performance. To Dyson, a farm isn't a way of life handed down from granddad. It's a system to be optimized. And that mindset, with billions behind it, is exactly why he has overtaken families who have been doing this for 300 years. And when harvest comes, the scale of it is genuinely something to see. Fleets of combines moving across fields so wide you can't make out the far hedge. Grain stores like aircraft hangars. Lorries running through the night. This is not a postcard farm with a few sheep and a duck pond. It is heavy industry, dressed in green agriculture run with the precision of a production line, because that is exactly what it is to him. Before I get to the part that made people genuinely angry, and it's coming, do me one quick favor. If you're enjoying this, just tap the like button and subscribe. It properly helps the channel, and it's completely free. Right, back to it. Because to understand the farmer, you have to understand the fortune, and it very nearly didn't happen. Back in the late 1970s, Dyson got fed up with a vacuum that kept clogging. So he started building prototypes. Not 10, not 100. 5,127 of them over 5 long years, almost all of them failures. He went deep into debt. British firms didn't want his idea. He had to license it abroad, fight lawsuits, and finally launch his own machine in 1993. It sold like nothing before it. And that stubbornness, 5,000 failures before a single success, is the exact same stubbornness now pointed at a Lincolnshire potato. So here's the real question. The man is worth somewhere in the region of £23 billion. He could do absolutely anything. Why pour so much of it into mud and tractors? Because James Dyson understands something most people never quite grasp. Companies can fail. Brands fall out of fashion. Cash loses a little of its value every single year. But land, they are not making any more of it. Land is the one asset that, over a long enough stretch of time, almost never lets you down. Dyson has said himself that he wants the business to still be farming in Lincolnshire in 100 years. This is not a hobby. It is a dynasty. He isn't buying fields. He's buying centuries, a foundation his family can stand on long after the very last vacuum is sold. That's the long game, and it is the game the very richest have always played. And now, the part I promised, the detail that made half the country furious. For years, Britain's biggest farmer was also one of the biggest receivers of farm subsidies. Public money. We are talking millions of pounds a year in support payments, the very same system that props up farms right across the country, flowing to a man already worth billions. And it gets sharper. A great deal of that money, in the old days, came from the European Union. Yet Dyson was one of the most famous, most vocal backers of Brexit, of Britain leaving that very union. Take their subsidies, back the exit. And then, not long after the vote, his company moved its head office to Singapore. The Buy British, Billionaire, banking British and European subsidies, headquartered in Asia. Whatever you make of the man, you can see why a lot of people choked on their tea. That is the detail. That is the one they never put in the adverts. But step back, and there is something far bigger going on here than one man and his strawberries. Dyson is not alone. All across Britain, the seriously rich are quietly buying up farmland, billionaires, pension funds, investment houses, the lot. Because they have all worked out the very same thing he did. When everything else feels shaky, you buy the ground itself. The trouble is, every acre a billionaire buys is an acre a young farmer cannot. Land prices climb out of reach. The small family farm, the kind your granddad might have had, gets squeezed that little bit harder. So Dyson's empire isn't only a great British success story, though it absolutely is that. It is also a window into who really owns this country now, and who is slowly being priced out of it. The fields look exactly the same as they always did. It's the names on the deeds that have changed. So next time you pass a vast, perfectly kept field somewhere out in the east of England, the crops in dead straight lines, the technology quietly humming away, have a proper look. There's a fair chance you are not looking at some old family farm at all. You might be looking at a slice of 36,000 acres of England, owned by the man who got rich selling you a vacuum cleaner. Britain's biggest farmer doesn't wear a flat cap. He's a billionaire engineer who decided that the smartest thing a very rich man can buy isn't a yacht or a football club. It's the ground beneath your feet. If you enjoyed this one, you'll like our deep dive into the other British empires hiding in plain sight. It's on screen now. Give this a like. Tell me in the comments whether you reckon Dyson's a genius or just very good at playing the system, and subscribe for more.